When I was a young boy in India, I cried out to God in desperation, "Why do I feel so alone in this world?" That night I had a dream where Divine Mother smiled at me and said, "My child, you are never alone. I place you exactly where you need to be, when you need to be there." If you are here watching this, it is no accident. Your soul has been guided here. You clicked on this video because something deep inside you knows you were meant for more than just surviving each day. Maybe you feel spiritually hungry but don't know how to feed that hunger. Maybe you pray but feel like no one is listening. Maybe you look at your life and wonder, is this all there is? Maybe you wake up each morning feeling empty despite having everything you thought you wanted. Maybe you've tried meditation, read spiritual books, attended religious services, but still feel like there's a wall between you and the divine love you long for. I understand this feeling completely, my dear friend, because I have guided millions of souls through this exact awakening over more than 50 years of teaching. I have sat with people from every walk of life, wealthy business leaders who had everything but felt nothing, simple farmers who worked the land but felt disconnected from the earth, young people drowning in the confusion of modern life, older souls wondering if they had wasted their precious years. And in every single case, what they were really seeking was the same thing: to remember their true nature as children of God. You see, there is a reason you feel restless, a reason you feel like you don't quite fit in this world, a reason you sometimes look at the people around you living ordinary lives and think, there must be something more. That restlessness is not a problem to be solved. It is a gift to be treasured. It is your soul's memory of its divine home, calling you back to the love from which you came and to which you will return. For over 50 years, I have been a bridge between the ancient wisdom of India and the seeking hearts of the West. I am not here to convert you to any religion. I am not here to tell you that your current beliefs are wrong. I am here to help you discover the God that already lives in your heart, regardless of what name you use for the divine, regardless of which scriptures you read, regardless of which building you enter to pray. My way is beautifully simple. No complicated rituals that you have to memorize, no expensive courses that you have to buy, no secret knowledge that only a few can access. Just the direct path to your own divine nature, the path that every great saint and sage throughout history has walked. This path is available to you right now, exactly as you are, with all your imperfections and questions and doubts. In fact, God loves your questions. Questions mean you are awake. Questions mean you are seeking. And when you seek with your whole heart, you always find. By the end of our time together today, you will understand why every single experience in your life, the beautiful ones and the painful ones, the successes and the failures, the moments of joy and the nights of tears, have all been perfectly orchestrated to bring you to this moment of awakening. You will have practical techniques that work immediately, not someday when you become more spiritual, but right now in your ordinary human life. Most importantly, you will never again feel alone, because you will know in your bones that you are a beloved child of the infinite, watched over, guided, and cherished beyond your wildest imagination. Let me tell you about the day God taught me the most important lesson through a simple train station. A lesson that changed not only my understanding of patience, but my entire relationship with divine timing. I was traveling across India, making my way to visit a great saint in a remote village. I had planned my journey carefully, calculated the train schedules, arranged my connections. Everything was supposed to work perfectly. But as so often happens in life, everything went wrong. My train was delayed for hours and hours. All around me, wealthy passengers in their fine silk clothes paced back and forth like caged tigers, checking their expensive watches every few minutes, growing more frustrated and angry with each passing hour. Their first-class tickets, their important business meetings, their carefully laid plans, none of it meant anything in the face of this simple delay. I must admit, I felt the same frustration rising in my chest. I had important spiritual work to do. I had people counting on me. Surely God would want me to reach my destination on time so I could serve Him better. But as the hours stretched on and the heat of the day grew more intense, I began to feel my ego dissolving into something much more peaceful. That's when I noticed an old beggar sitting in perfect contentment on the platform. His clothes were not just worn, they were practically falling apart. His feet were bare and dusty. He owned nothing but a small cloth bag that probably contained everything he possessed in this world. Yet his face, oh his face, glowed with such deep contentment that I felt drawn to him like a moth to the most beautiful flame. I sat beside him on the hard concrete, leaving behind my cushioned first-class seat, and I asked, "Good sir, How can you be so peaceful when everyone else is so upset about this delay? Don't you have somewhere important to be? He turned to me with eyes that sparkled like stars reflected in still water, and his smile contained more wisdom than I had found in years of studying ancient scriptures. He said, "Son, look around you. All these people think happiness comes from reaching their destination on time, from having their plans work out exactly as they expect. But I have learned something much more beautiful through many years of having nothing and needing nothing." He paused, and in that pause I felt something shift in the very air around us. Then he continued, "Happiness is not in the destination, my young friend. Happiness is not even in the journey. Happiness is in knowing with absolute certainty that you are always exactly where God needs you to be, exactly when you need to be there. This delay, this heat, this inconvenience, this is not God's mistake. This is God's perfect plan unfolding in the only way it could unfold." In that moment, looking into this simple man's radiant face, I saw the face of God himself. I realized that I had been so focused on getting somewhere to serve God that I had missed the opportunity to be with God right where I was. That beggar, who the wealthy passengers probably didn't even notice, was my greatest teacher that day. He showed me that peace is not something we achieve when our circumstances align with our preferences. Peace is something we choose when we surrender our small will to the infinite wisdom of divine love. He taught me what years of meditation and prayer and studying scriptures could not teach me, that every moment is sacred, every delay is divine, every inconvenience is an invitation to go deeper into trust. When my train finally arrived, 6 hours late, I thanked that beautiful soul for the greatest gift any teacher can give, a living demonstration of what it means to be free. Right now, as you listen to these words, I want you to think about your own delayed trains, the job that didn't work out the way you planned, the relationship that ended when you thought it would last forever, the dreams that seem so far away you've almost stopped believing in them, the illness that changed everything, the loss that broke your heart, the financial struggles that keep you awake at night, the children who don't call as often as you wish they would, the loneliness that follows you even into crowded rooms. What if I told you that every single one of these delays, every detour, every disappointment, every moment when life didn't go according to your plan, has been God's way of bringing you exactly where you need to be for your soul's greatest growth? What if I told you that your struggles have not been random cruelty from an uncaring universe, but the loving discipline of a divine mother who is preparing you to receive gifts so beautiful that your current self couldn't even handle them? This is not just spiritual philosophy, my dear friend. This is the living truth I have seen demonstrated in thousands of lives. The people who come to me with the deepest wounds often become the greatest healers. The ones who have lost everything discover riches that cannot be taken away. The ones who have been broken open by life become channels for a love so pure it transforms everyone they meet. Let me share another story that will change forever how you see the difficulties in your life. I once walked through the most magnificent rose garden with a student who was going through tremendous suffering. His marriage was falling apart, his business was failing, his health was poor, and he felt abandoned by God. As we walked among the roses, their beauty seemed to mock his pain. He pointed to a gorgeous red rose, perfect in every way, and said with bitterness in his voice, "Master, if God is so loving, if he really cares about us the way you say he does, then why does he put thorns on something so beautiful? Why must there always be pain mixed with beauty? Why can't life just be good? Why can't love just be easy? Why does everything beautiful have to hurt?" I could hear in his voice not just his personal pain, but the cry of every human heart that has ever wondered why love and loss seem to go together, why joy and sorrow are such intimate companions, why growth and pain seem inseparable. These are the questions that every sincere seeker asks at some point on the spiritual path. I picked up that rose very carefully, holding it gently by its stem, and I said, "My dear friend, I want you to look at this rose with new eyes. Look more closely at those thorns you're complaining about. The thorns are not God's mistake. The thorns are not evidence that God doesn't care about beauty. The thorns are God's perfect protection system." I held the rose closer to him and continued, "Without these thorns, everyone would grab these roses carelessly, crushing the delicate petals in their eagerness to possess the beauty. Children would yank them from the bush without thought. Casual passers-by would pluck them impulsively and then discard them when they wilted. The thorns ensure that only those who approach with genuine care and respect, only those willing to pay attention and move slowly and mindfully, can hold the rose safely. I saw his eyes beginning to soften as understanding dawned, but I wasn't finished with this teaching. Now let me tell you the deeper truth, the truth that will set you free from resenting your difficulties. Your life challenges, your heartbreaks, your struggles, your disappointments, these are exactly like the thorns on this rose. They are not punishments from a cruel God. They are not evidence that you've done something wrong or that you're unlucky or that life is unfair. I paused and looked directly into his eyes. Your difficulties are God's protection system for your soul. They ensure that only your truest, deepest, most authentic self can touch the beautiful rose of your divine nature. Every challenge you face makes you more careful with your own heart and with the hearts of others. Every loss teaches you what really matters. Every disappointment strips away another layer of illusion. Every struggle makes you stronger, more compassionate, more wise. The tears began flowing down his cheeks, but these were not tears of sadness. These were tears of relief, tears of recognition, tears of a soul finally understanding that its pain had meaning. Master, he whispered, are you telling me that everything I've been through, all this suffering that felt so meaningless, has actually been preparing me for something? Yes, my dear friend, I replied. The person who has never struggled cannot appreciate joy the way you can. The person who has never been lost cannot value being found the way you will. The person who has never had their heart broken cannot love with the fierce tenderness that comes from knowing how precious love really island. Your thorns have been creating a masterpiece. Your struggles have been sculpting a saint. From that day forward, his entire relationship with difficulty changed. He stopped asking, why is this happening to me? And started asking, what is this here to teach me? He stopped cursing his challenges and started bowing to them as his teachers. And you know what happened? When he changed his relationship with his struggles changed their relationship with him. What had once felt like endless punishment became profound education. What had once felt like random cruelty became purposeful love. This is why you must never, ever curse your difficulties, my beloved friend. Instead, I want you to bow to them, thank them, ask them what gifts they have brought you. When you stop fighting your challenges and start learning from them, everything changes. The very experiences that once felt like evidence that God had forgotten you become proof that God has been with you every step of the way, loving you too much to let you settle for anything less than your highest potential. But now I want to tell you about the most beautiful, life-changing discovery of my entire existence. When I first experienced Divine Mother's love, I wept for 3 days straight, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming joy of finally understanding what real love truly island. All my life, I had been searching for love in all the wrong places, thinking that if people would just appreciate me more, if my family would understand me better, if I could find the perfect spiritual community, if I could achieve enough success or wisdom or recognition, then finally I would feel loved. But I was like a fish swimming in the ocean while dying of thirst, not realizing that what I was seeking was the very medium in which I lived and moved and had my being. I was like someone standing in the sunshine while complaining about the darkness, not knowing that I only had to open my eyes to see the light that was already there. Divine love, my dear friend, is completely different from human love. Though human love at its best is a reflection of this greater love. Human love says, I love you because you make me happy, because you meet my needs, because you act the way I want you to act. Human love is conditional, changeable, dependent on circumstances and moods and whether or not the other person is having a good day. But divine love, oh divine love, is something entirely different. Divine love says, I love you because you exist, because you are a spark of my own infinite being, because there is nothing you could ever do or fail to do that could change the fact that you are my beloved child. Divine love doesn't come and go based on your behavior or your beliefs or your achievements. Divine love simply is, like the sun that shines equally on the just and the unjust, like the air that is available to all who breathe. Human love often demands something in return. Divine love gives without expecting anything back. Human love can turn to hate when disappointed. Divine love remains constant even when we ignore it or reject it, or forget it's there. Human love sees our flaws and either tries to fix them or leaves when it can't. Divine love sees our flaws as places where the light is trying to get in. The moment I felt this unconditional love, surrounding me like warm light, penetrating every cell of my body, filling every empty space in my heart, I realized I had been like someone dying of thirst while sitting next to a flowing river of pure, sweet water. The love I had been desperately seeking from other people, the acceptance I had been trying to earn through my spiritual achievements, the validation I had been craving from the world. All of this had been inside me, around me, through me all along. I just hadn't known how to tune in to the frequency of divine love. It's like having a radio that can pick up 1,000 stations, but you've been stuck on one station of static and noise, not realizing that with just a small adjustment of the dial, you could hear the most beautiful music in the universe. That adjustment, that tuning into divine love, is available to you right now, this very moment, exactly as you are. You don't have to become more spiritual first. You don't have to fix all your problems first. You don't have to understand everything about God first. Divine love loves you right now, with all your questions, with all your doubts, with all your imperfections, with all your fears. In fact, divine love especially loves your imperfections because that's where you're most real, most human, most in need of the healing that only love can bring. You can access this love right now, this very moment. Close your eyes for just a second if you feel comfortable doing so, and imagine the most loving presence you can think of. Maybe it's your grandmother who always accepted you exactly as you were. Maybe it's a teacher who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself. Maybe it's a friend who loved you through your worst mistakes. Feel their warm arms around you. Feel their complete acceptance of you exactly as you are. Now I want you to multiply that feeling by 1,000, by 1,000,000, by infinity. Imagine that this loving presence sees not just who you are now, but who you're becoming. Imagine that this love has been with you every moment of your life, celebrating your victories, comforting you in your defeats, never leaving you alone even when you felt most abandoned. That is just the tiniest taste of how much Divine Mother loves you right now, this very second. Now let me share with you the 3 most important truths that can transform your life starting immediately. These are not just concepts to think about. These are living realities that you can experience and apply in your daily life. The first transformative truth is this: you are not your thoughts. I know this might sound strange at first, especially in a culture that tells us we are what we think, but please listen carefully to what I'm about to share with you. The voice in your head that worries about tomorrow, that judges yourself and others, that complains about yesterday, that tells you you're not good enough, that creates endless scenarios of things that might go wrong. That voice is not the real you. That voice is what we call the ego, the false self, the part of you that has forgotten its divine nature and now thinks it has to fight for survival in a hostile universe. But there is another part of you, a deeper part, a part that exists beyond all thought and emotion and circumstance. This is your true self, your soul, the part of you that is always connected to God whether you feel it or not. This part of you never worries because it knows that you are eternally safe in divine love. This part of you never judges because it sees the divine spark in everyone. This part of you never feels separate because it knows that all life is one life appearing in countless forms. Think of it this way, and this analogy will help you understand something that mystics have known for thousands of years. Clouds pass through the sky, but we never make the mistake of saying that the clouds are the sky. We know that the sky remains vast and blue and peaceful, whether there are storm clouds or fluffy white clouds or no clouds at all. The sky is not affected by the weather that passes through it. Your thoughts are exactly like those clouds, passing through the infinite sky of your consciousness. You are not the worried thoughts. You are not the angry thoughts. You are not the sad thoughts. You are not the confused thoughts. You are the vast, peaceful awareness that can watch all thoughts come and go without being disturbed by them, without being defined by them, without being controlled by them. This is why meditation works so beautifully, and why every spiritual tradition teaches some form of meditation. When you sit quietly and simply observe your thoughts without fighting them or following them, without judging them or believing them, you begin to realize experientially that there is a part of you that is completely separate from all mental noise. That part of you is always calm, always wise, always connected to the source of all peace. The more you practice resting in that calm awareness, the less your thoughts can disturb your peace. You begin to realize that thoughts are just mental weather, and just like external weather, mental weather always changes. The storm clouds of worry give way to clear skies of peace. The fog of confusion lifts to reveal the sunshine of understanding. The hurricane of anger calms down into the gentle breeze of forgiveness. Let me give you a simple exercise you can try right now that will prove to you that you are not your thoughts. Notice whatever thoughts are happening in your head at this very moment. Maybe you're thinking about whether this really works, or remembering something from earlier today, or planning what you need to do later, or wondering how much longer this video is going to be. Just notice those thoughts like you would notice cars passing outside your window. You don't need to stop the cars, and you don't need to stop the thoughts. Just watch them pass by with curious, friendly attention. Notice that there's a part of you that can observe your thoughts. Who is the observer? Who is watching the thoughts? That observer, that witness, that awareness, that is who you really are. That is the part of you that is always peaceful, no matter what mental weather is passing through. Feel how freeing it is to be the bucko as watcher instead of being caught up in the mental traffic. This understanding immediately reduces anxiety and suffering because you realize that your worried thoughts are not facts about reality. They are just mental weather, and mental weather always changes. When you know you are not your thoughts, you become free from the tyranny of your own mind. But you can take this even deeper. Start noticing the space between thoughts, the silent gaps where no thinking is happening at all. In those gaps, that's where you'll find your true nature, pure awareness, pure peace, pure love. The more you rest in those gaps, the more they expand, until eventually you realize that the peace was never in the thoughts or between the thoughts. The peace is what you are. The second life-changing truth that will transform how you live every day is this. God speaks to you through your intuition constantly, every single day, but divine guidance never comes as fear. It always comes as a quiet knowing, a gentle nudge, a peaceful feeling that settles into your heart like a bird coming home to its nest. The challenge for most of us is that we've learned to trust the loud, anxious voice of our ego instead of learning to recognize and follow the gentle whisper of our soul. Let me teach you how to tell the difference between these two voices, because this skill alone can save you years of unnecessary suffering and guide you toward your highest path. Your ego voice is like a worried friend who means well but sees danger and problems everywhere. This voice speaks loudly and urgently, often late at night when you're trying to sleep or early in the morning when you're just waking up. It says things like, "You're not good enough for this opportunity. What if something terrible happens to your loved ones? You can't trust anyone. You have to do everything yourself. You need to control every outcome or your life will fall apart. Everyone else has it figured out except you." This ego voice creates anxiety and makes you feel separate from others and disconnected from God. It operates from fear and scarcity, always assuming the worst, always preparing for catastrophe, always trying to protect you by keeping you small and safe and hidden. While this voice sometimes thinks it's helping you, it actually keeps you trapped in cycles of worry and limitation. Your soul voice is completely different in every way. It speaks quietly and calmly, often so softly that you have to become still to hear it. It never shouts, never creates urgency, never makes you feel afraid or anxious. This voice says things like, "Be patient, everything is working out perfectly in divine timing. Trust your heart, it knows the way. Love is always the answer, even when it doesn't seem logical. You are guided and protected every step of the way. This challenge is here to help you grow into who you're meant to become." This soul voice brings immediate peace when you hear it, and it makes you feel connected to something greater than yourself. It operates from love and abundance, always seeing possibilities, always trusting in the goodness of life, always encouraging you to expand into your highest potential. When you follow this voice, even when it doesn't make logical sense to your mind, you always end up exactly where you need to be. Here is a simple 3-part test you can use anytime you need guidance, whether you're making a small daily decision or facing a major life change. When you're trying to decide what to do, ask yourself these 3 questions. First, does this thought or feeling bring me peace? Not excitement necessarily, not the adrenaline rush of a risky adventure, but genuine peace, the kind of calm that settles deep into your bones. Second, does following this guidance harm no one? Divine guidance never asks you to hurt yourself or others, never encourages revenge or manipulation or dishonesty. Third, does this feel true in the depths of my heart, beyond all my mental arguments and fears? If the answer to all 3 questions is yes, that is God speaking to you through your intuition. Follow that guidance, even if your mind gives you 100 logical reasons why you shouldn't, even if other people don't understand, even if it means disappointing someone's expectations. Divine guidance is always leading you toward your highest good and the highest good of all. I remember a student who came to me in tears because she couldn't decide whether to accept a marriage proposal from a man her family had chosen for her. On paper, he was perfect. He was successful in business, kind to her family, from a respected background, financially stable, everything her parents had dreamed of for their daughter. Her mind gave her 100 reasons why she should say yes. It was a good match. It would make everyone happy. It was the practical choice. It was what was expected of her. But every time she imagined walking down the aisle toward this man, every time she pictured spending her life with him, she felt a heaviness in her chest, a sinking feeling in her stomach, a voice inside her that whispered, "This is not your path." She tried to convince herself that she was just being foolish, that she was letting romantic fantasies get in the way of practical wisdom. I told her to sit quietly and ask her soul what it truly wanted. Not what her family wanted, not what society expected, not what seemed most sensible, but what her deepest truth was calling for. After several minutes of silence, with tears streaming down her face, she looked up with the clearest eyes I had ever seen and said, "Master, my heart knows. The answer is no. I don't know how I'll explain this to my family, and I don't know who I'm supposed to marry instead, but I know this is not my path." She followed her intuition, despite the temporary disappointment and confusion it caused her family. 6 months later, she met a man at a spiritual retreat, someone who shared her deepest values and her longing for God. They became not just husband and wife, but spiritual partners who supported each other's growth and served together for the rest of their lives. When I performed their wedding ceremony, she whispered to me, "Master, if I had ignored my inner guidance and married the other man, I would never have met my true soulmate." Following divine guidance becomes easier and easier with practice because you learn to trust that still, small voice within you. Start with small decisions where the stakes don't feel so high. Should you take this route to work today or that one? Should you call this friend right now or wait until later? Should you eat this food or choose something else? Ask your heart and listen for the peaceful answer. Don't overthink it, don't analyze it to death. Just notice what feels peaceful and follow that. As you prove to yourself again and again that divine guidance works in little things, you'll gain confidence to trust it in bigger decisions. You'll start to notice how often that quiet inner knowing steers you away from problems you couldn't have foreseen or guides you toward opportunities that seem to come out of nowhere. You'll begin to realize that you have a built-in navigation system that is far more sophisticated than any GPS, a system that can guide you not just to where you want to go, but to where your soul needs to go for its highest evolution. The third and most powerful truth I can share with you is this. Service to others is not just a nice thing to do when you have extra time and energy. Service is the fastest, most direct path to discovering God. Because when you forget your small self in genuine love for another person, you discover your true self, which is one with all life. This might sound backwards in a culture that tells you to focus on your own needs first, but it is the greatest secret of every spiritual tradition. The ego always asks, "What's in it for me? How can I get what I want? How can I avoid pain and maximize pleasure?" The soul always asks, "How can I help? How can I serve? How can I be a channel for love in this world?" When you shift from asking life to serve you to asking how you can serve life, everything changes in the most miraculous way. Suddenly, your personal problems seem smaller because you're focused on something bigger than your individual concerns. Your heart begins to open like a flower in sunlight, expanding beyond the narrow boundaries of your personal worries. You feel useful, needed, connected to the great web of existence that includes all beings. You discover that you matter, that your life has meaning, that you have something valuable to contribute to the healing of this world. And here's the beautiful paradox. This is not sacrifice in the way most people think of sacrifice. This is not about giving up your happiness for others. This is actually the most joyful, fulfilling way to live, because when you serve with love, you tap into the same energy that runs the universe. You become a conduit for divine love, and divine love flowing through you is the greatest happiness any human being can experience. Service doesn't have to be dramatic or complicated or require you to change your entire life overnight. Sometimes the greatest service is simply listening with your whole heart to someone who feels unheard. Sometimes it's offering encouragement to someone who has lost hope. Sometimes it's being fully present with someone who feels alone in their struggle. Sometimes it's helping an elderly neighbor with their groceries, or volunteering at a local shelter, or simply smiling at strangers in a way that reminds them they matter. Small acts of genuine love create ripples that spread farther than you can imagine. A kind word to someone having a difficult day might be exactly what they need to choose hope over despair. A moment of patient listening might help someone feel less alone with their problems. A simple act of generosity might restore someone's faith in human goodness. You never know how your smallest gestures of love might be exactly what someone else's soul is praying for. I have watched thousands of people heal their own deepest pain by helping others heal theirs, and there's something absolutely magical about this process. When you comfort someone who is grieving, your own grief becomes lighter and more manageable. When you encourage someone who feels discouraged, your own hope grows stronger and more resilient. When you forgive someone who has hurt you, you set your own heart free from the prison of resentment. When you serve others, you discover that giving and receiving are not opposites. They are the same movement of love. Service develops unconditional love in a way that no amount of meditation or study can do alone, because it takes you out of your head and into your heart. It moves you beyond thinking about love to actually being love in action. And unconditional love, my dear friend, is the direct experience of God. When you love without conditions, without expecting anything in return, without judging whether someone deserves your love, you become a perfect mirror of divine love itself. Now let me give you 3 simple but powerful practices that will change your life completely if you do them consistently. These are not complicated spiritual exercises that require years of training. They are practical ways to stay connected to divine love throughout your ordinary day, ways to transform every moment into an opportunity for deeper communion with God. The first practice is what I call the morning connection, and it will change your relationship with every single day of your life. The moment you wake up, before you reach for your phone to check messages, before you start thinking about your to-do list, before you let the demands of the day crowd into your consciousness, sit on the edge of your bed and create a sacred moment of connection with the divine. Say silently or out loud, "Divine Mother, beloved God, what would you have me know today? How can I serve? How can I love? How can I grow?" Then sit quietly for just 2 or 3 minutes and listen with your heart wide open. Don't strain to hear anything. Don't worry if your mind wanders. Just create a space of receptive stillness and trust that divine love is always speaking to you. The guidance might come as a single word that brings you peace, like patience or gratitude or trust. It might come as an image that fills you with hope or love. It might come as a feeling of being surrounded by protective light. It might come as a simple knowing of what your first loving action of the day should be. Trust whatever peaceful impression comes to you. This is your daily guidance from the source of all wisdom. One student told me that when she started doing this practice, her whole relationship with life changed. She said, "Master, I used to wake up dreading all the things I had to do, all the problems I had to solve, all the people I had to please. Now I wake up excited to see what Divine Mother wants to teach me today. What opportunities to love and serve will be placed in my path. Every day feels like a conversation with God instead of a burden to bear." This simple practice will help you remember throughout the day that you're not alone, that you're not just randomly stumbling through life hoping for the best. You're being guided by infinite wisdom and surrounded by infinite love every moment. When challenges arise, you'll remember to ask, "What is this here to teach me?" When opportunities appear, you'll recognize them as gifts from the divine. When people cross your path, you'll see them as souls sent to you for mutual blessing. The second practice is what I call the evening review, and it will accelerate your spiritual growth faster than you can imagine. Before you go to sleep each night, spend a few minutes gently reviewing your day without judgment, without criticism, with the loving awareness of a wise friend who wants to help you learn and grow. Ask yourself 2 simple questions. First, where did I see God today? Maybe you saw God in a stranger's unexpected kindness. Maybe you saw God in a moment of natural beauty that took your breath away. Maybe you saw God in your own patience when you normally would have been irritated. Maybe you saw God in a child's laughter, in a friend's encouragement, in a moment of silence that filled you with peace. Train your mind to look for the sacred in the ordinary. The second question is equally important. Where did I miss the opportunity to see God today? Maybe you were so busy worrying about the future that you missed the gift of the present moment. Maybe you were so focused on your problems that you didn't notice someone else who needed your attention. Maybe you were so caught up in judging someone that you missed seeing the divine spark in their eyes. Maybe you let fear make your decisions instead of love. But here's the crucial part. Don't criticize yourself for what you missed. Don't turn this into another reason to feel bad about yourself. Instead, send gratitude for what you learned. Thank your mistakes for being such patient teachers. Forgive yourself for being human and imperfect and still learning how to love. This practice trains your mind to look for God everywhere. And what you look for, you find. It also helps you become more conscious of your patterns, more aware of where love is trying to break through in your life. Over time, you'll find that you naturally begin to see more opportunities to serve, to love, to trust, to forgive. You'll become a more conscious participant in your own spiritual evolution. The third practice is perhaps the most powerful of all, because you can do it anytime, anywhere, in any circumstance. During your daily activities, while you wash dishes, while you walk to work, while you drive, while you stand in line at the store, while you fold laundry, while you prepare food, silently repeat these sacred words: I am in God, God is in me. But don't just say the words mechanically like a robot. Feel the truth of them penetrating every cell of your body. Feel yourself surrounded by infinite love like a fish swimming in an ocean of pure light. Feel that love flowing through your hands as you work, through your feet as you walk, through your voice as you speak to others, through your eyes as you look at the world. Imagine that with every breath you take, you're breathing in divine love and breathing out divine love. Imagine that your heart is a temple where God dwells, and every beat of your heart is a prayer of gratitude. As you practice this throughout your day, you'll begin to notice something miraculous happening. Ordinary moments become sacred. Mundane tasks become forms of worship. Difficult people become your teachers in patience and compassion. Traffic jams become opportunities for prayer. Waiting in lines becomes chances to send silent blessings to everyone around you. This practice transforms your entire experience of being alive because it reminds you constantly of who you really are and where you really live. You're not just a small, separate person struggling to survive in a harsh world. You are a beloved child of the infinite, temporarily playing in the garden of creation, surrounded always by the love from which you came and to which you will return. Try this practice for just 1 week, and I promise you, your life will never be the same. You'll find peace in places where you used to find stress. You'll discover love in situations where you used to find only irritation. You'll experience connection where you used to feel isolation. You'll know in your bones that you are never, ever alone. But let me share with you an even deeper secret about these practices. They work not because you do them perfectly, but because you do them with sincerity. God doesn't care if your mind wanders during your morning connection. Divine Mother doesn't judge you if you forget to do your evening review sometimes. The universe doesn't withhold its love if you don't remember to repeat the sacred words every moment. What matters is your intention, your desire to remember your true nature, your willingness to keep returning to love no matter how many times you forget. Every time you remember to connect, even for just a few seconds, you're building spiritual muscle. Every time you choose to look for God instead of focusing only on problems, you're training your consciousness to recognize the sacred. Every time you serve others instead of only thinking about yourself, you're opening your heart a little wider. And here's something beautiful. The more you practice these simple techniques, the more they begin to happen automatically. Your morning connection becomes as natural as brushing your teeth. Your evening review becomes as essential as eating dinner. The awareness of God's presence becomes your normal state of consciousness instead of something you have to work to remember. You see, my dear friend, you were never meant to struggle through life alone, wondering if anyone cares about you, wondering if your existence matters, wondering if there's any point to all the difficulties you face. You were meant to walk through life hand in hand with divine love, knowing that every step is guided, every breath is blessed, every moment is an opportunity to experience and express the infinite love that is your true nature. But perhaps you're thinking, this all sounds beautiful, Yogananda, but my life is so difficult right now. I have real problems that need real solutions. I have bills to pay and relationships that are struggling and health challenges and responsibilities that feel overwhelming. How can these spiritual practices help with the actual circumstances of my life? Let me tell you something that might surprise you. These practices don't work by magically making all your problems disappear, though sometimes that does happen in ways that seem miraculous. These practices work by changing you from the inside out, by reconnecting you with the source of all strength and wisdom and peace, so that you can handle whatever life brings you from a place of divine power instead of human weakness. When you remember that you are not alone, that infinite intelligence is guiding your life, you make better decisions. When you remember that you are loved unconditionally by the Creator of the universe, you stop desperately seeking approval from people who may not be capable of giving it. When you remember that your true purpose is to be a channel for love, you stop wasting energy on petty concerns and focus on what really matters. I have seen people facing the most challenging circumstances: serious illness, financial ruin, the loss of loved ones, betrayal by those they trusted, discover a peace and strength they never knew they possessed when they learn to connect with the divine love that lives within them. Not because their circumstances immediately changed, but because they changed their relationship with their circumstances. When you know you are held in divine love, you can face any storm with courage. When you know your life has spiritual purpose beyond your personal comfort, you can find meaning in the midst of suffering. When you know that death is not the end but simply a transition back to your true home, you can live with greater freedom and less fear. This doesn't mean you become passive or stop working to improve your life. It means you work from a place of peace instead of panic, from trust instead of fear, from love instead of desperation. And when you work from that centered place, connected to divine wisdom, you find solutions you couldn't see before. Doors open that you didn't even know existed. Help comes from unexpected sources. Miracles become natural occurrences. Let me share with you one more story that illustrates the power of living from this divine connection. A woman came to me many years ago in the depths of despair. Her husband had left her for another woman after 20 years of marriage. She had no job skills because she had devoted herself to raising their children. She was facing the loss of her home because she couldn't make the mortgage payments alone. Her teenage children were angry and acting out. She felt like a complete failure as a wife, as a mother, as a human being. "Master," she said to me through her tears, "how can I possibly believe that God loves me when everything in my life is falling apart? If there really is a divine plan, it must be a plan to destroy me. I've tried to be a good person, I've tried to live by spiritual principles, and look what it's gotten me. I'm worse off than people who don't even believe in God." I looked into her eyes with all the compassion in my heart and said, "My dear daughter, what you're experiencing is not God's punishment, it's God's invitation. Everything that seems stable and secure is being stripped away so that you can discover the unshakable foundation that has always been there, your own divine nature. Sometimes the soul has to lose everything it thought it needed in order to find everything it actually island." I taught her the same practices I'm sharing with you today. For the first few weeks, she told me later, she felt like she was just going through the motions. Her morning connections felt empty. Her evening reviews only reminded her of how much she was struggling. The sacred words felt meaningless in the face of such overwhelming practical challenges. But she kept practicing anyway, not because she felt inspired, but because she had nothing left to lose. And slowly, something began to shift. In her morning quiet time, she started receiving guidance about small steps she could take. In her evening reviews, she began to notice tiny moments of grace she had missed during the day. The sacred words began to bring her comfort in moments of grace. Panic. As the months went by, she found the courage to go back to school and learn new skills. She discovered talents she never knew she had. She started a small business that grew beyond her wildest dreams. Her relationship with her children deepened as they saw her strength and resilience. She eventually met a man who loved and cherished her in ways her former husband never had. But the most important transformation was internal. She told me years later, "Master, I wouldn't trade that difficult time for anything, because it taught me who I really am. I discovered that I am not dependent on any external circumstance for my peace or my joy or my sense of worth. I learned that I carry within me everything I need to handle whatever life brings. That knowledge has made me fearless in a way I never was when my life seemed perfect on the outside. This is what I want for you, my beloved friend. Not a life without challenges, because challenges are how the soul grows strong, but a life where you know, beyond any doubt, that you have access to infinite resources of strength and wisdom and love. A life where you understand that you are never given more than you can handle when you remember to handle it with divine help rather than trying to carry everything alone." As we come toward the end of our time together, I want to address something that I know many of you are feeling. You might be thinking, "But Yogananda, I've tried to be spiritual before. I've read books and attended workshops and tried to meditate, and I always seem to fall back into the same old patterns. What makes you think this time will be different? What if I'm just not cut out for this spiritual path?" My dear friend, let me tell you the most liberating truth I know. There is no such thing as failing on the spiritual path. There are only cycles of remembering and forgetting, cycles of connection and disconnection, cycles of clarity and confusion. Even the greatest saints went through periods of doubt and struggle. Even the most realized souls had moments when they felt far from God. The spiritual path is not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming real. It's about slowly, gradually, patiently learning to live from your true nature instead of from your fears and habits and conditioned patterns. Every time you remember to connect with divine love, even for a moment, you're making progress. Every time you choose compassion over judgment, patience over irritation, trust over worry, you're growing spiritually. You don't have to do these practices perfectly. You don't have to never forget. You don't have to become enlightened overnight. You just have to keep beginning again, keep returning to love, keep choosing connection over separation. The very fact that you're here, listening to these words, longing for something deeper and more meaningful, is proof that your soul is already awakening. God is not keeping score of your mistakes. Divine Mother is not disappointed in your struggles. The universe is not waiting for you to earn your way into spiritual success. You are already beloved. You are already chosen. You are already home in the heart of the divine. These practices are simply ways of remembering what has always been true. And here's something that will give you tremendous encouragement. Every single person who has ever walked this earth has faced the same fundamental spiritual challenges you're facing. The details are different, but the core issues are the same. How do I find peace in an uncertain world? How do I love when I've been hurt? How do I trust when I've been betrayed? How do I maintain hope when things look hopeless? How do I remember my divine nature when everything around me seems to deny it? You are not alone in your struggles, and you are not unique in your capacity for spiritual growth. Millions of souls before you have found their way home to God, often from circumstances far more difficult than yours. If they could do it, you can do it. If they could find peace in the midst of chaos, you can find peace in the midst of chaos. If they could discover love in the midst of loss, you can discover love in the midst of loss. The same divine spark that awakened in Buddha lives in you. The same love that flowed through Jesus flows through you. The same wisdom that illuminated Krishna illuminates you. You are not separate from the great saints and sages. You are their younger sibling, walking the same path they walked, destined for the same divine realization they achieved. Now, my beloved friend, as we prepare to close our time together, I want you to remember these essential truths that can anchor you no matter what storms may come in your life. First, you are not your struggling thoughts. You are the peaceful awareness behind them, the consciousness that can watch thoughts come and go without being disturbed by them. When you remember this, you step out of mental suffering and into spiritual freedom. You realize that you are not at the mercy of your own mind, that there is a place within you that remains calm and clear no matter what mental weather is passing through. Second, God speaks to you constantly through your loving intuition. Learn to listen for that still, small voice that always brings peace, never creates fear, and guides you toward your highest good and the highest good of all. Trust this inner guidance more than you trust the worried opinions of your mind or the conflicting advice of others. Your soul knows the way home to God because your soul has never actually left God. The journey is simply a matter of remembering what you have temporarily forgotten. Third, when you serve others with love, when you forget your small self in genuine care for your human family, you discover your divine nature in the most direct and powerful way possible. You realize that helping others is not something extra you do when you have time and energy left over from taking care of yourself. Service is the very purpose for which God sent you to this earth. Service is not sacrifice. Service is joy. Service is the fastest way to know God because service is the expression of divine love in action. These three truths, lived daily through simple practices, will transform your life from the inside out. They will not eliminate all challenges from your path, because challenges are necessary for spiritual growth. But they will give you the tools to meet every challenge with grace, to find meaning in every difficulty, to discover love in every circumstance. Now I want you to repeat these words with me, and as you speak them, feel the truth of them vibrating in every cell of your being, resonating in every corner of your heart, echoing in the deepest chambers of your soul. Speak these words not just with your voice, but with your entire being, allowing them to become a living prayer, a sacred declaration of your true identity. I am not this body that ages and changes. I am not even this mind that thinks and worries and plans. I am a child of the infinite, an immortal soul temporarily playing in the costume of humanity. I am a ray of divine light, temporarily focused through the lens of human experience, but never separate from the source of all light. Divine Mother's love surrounds me like an ocean of light, fills me like a cup overflowing with nectar, and guides my every step like a loving parent watching over a beloved child. Feel these words not just as concepts in your head, but as living reality in your heart. Continue with me. I am never alone, for God walks with me always. I am never unloved, for I am cherished beyond measure by the Creator of the universe. I am never without purpose, for I was born to be a channel of divine love in this world. In God I live and move and have my being. From God I came, and to God I shall return, but never for one moment am I separate from the love that is my source and my destiny. Let these words sink into the deepest part of your being. Allow them to heal every wound that has made you feel unworthy, to comfort every fear that has made you feel unsafe, to illuminate every darkness that has made you feel lost. You are so much more than you have imagined yourself to be. You are not a small, struggling human trying to find God. You are a divine being having a human experience, temporarily forgetting your true nature, so that you can have the joy of remembering it again. Your struggles are not evidence that you are broken or that God has forgotten you. Your struggles are evidence that you are growing, that your soul is expanding, that you are being prepared for greater expressions of love and service and joy. Your longing for something more is not dissatisfaction with life. It is your soul calling you home to the love that you have never actually left, only temporarily forgotten. The very fact that you have watched this video to the end, the very fact that these words have touched something deep within you, is proof that your spiritual awakening is not only possible but inevitable. You cannot ultimately fail on the path to God, because God is both your destination and your traveling companion. The love that you seek is the love that seeks you. The peace that you long for is the peace that longs for you. The joy that seems so elusive is actually your natural state, temporarily obscured by clouds of forgetfulness that are already beginning to part. If this message has brought you even a moment of peace, even a glimmer of hope, even a tiny opening in your heart, please subscribe to this channel so that more wisdom can flow into your life. These teachings are not just for your personal benefit, though they will surely benefit you beyond measure. They are for you to share, to live, to embody, so that you can become a beacon of hope for others who are still searching in the darkness. Like this video if it has resonated with something true in your soul, because when you like and share content that uplifts and inspires, you are performing a sacred service. You are helping these teachings reach other hearts that need to hear them. You are participating in the great work of awakening that is happening all over our planet as more and more souls remember their divine nature. And please, I invite you to share in the comments below one way that you felt God's presence today, one moment when you glimpsed the love that surrounds you always. Your sharing might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to remember that they are not alone in their journey. Your words of hope might be the encouragement that helps another soul take the next step on their path to God. Maybe you felt divine presence in an unexpected phone call from a friend when you needed it most. Maybe you saw God in the way sunlight fell through your window this morning. Maybe you experienced divine love in a moment of patience with yourself when you normally would have been self-critical. Maybe you glimpsed your true nature in a moment of spontaneous kindness to a stranger. These are not small things. These are the building blocks of spiritual awakening. Remember, my beloved friend, every saint was once a sinner. Every master was once a student. Every teacher was once lost in confusion. The path from human consciousness to divine consciousness is not a journey from here to there. It is a journey from forgetting to remembering, from separation to unity, from fear to love. And you, beautiful soul, are already well on your way. You are loved beyond measure by the very source of love itself. Your spiritual awakening is not just possible, it is the most natural thing in the universe, as natural as a flower blooming in spring, as natural as a river flowing to the ocean, as natural as a bird learning to fly. You were created for this awakening. You were born for this remembrance. You were sent to this earth for this very purpose, to discover God within yourself and to share that discovery with the world through your unique expression of divine love. Until we meet again, whether in this form or in the realm of pure consciousness where all souls are one, may you walk in light. May you rest in the knowledge of your divine nature. May you find peace in every moment, love in every circumstance, and God in every face you meet. May your life be a prayer, your work be worship, and your love be a blessing to all whose lives you touch. Go forth now with the confidence of a child of the divine. Go forth with the peace of one who knows they are eternally safe in divine love. Go forth with the joy of one who has remembered their true identity. You are not walking alone. You never have been walking alone. You never will be walking alone. The same love that birthed the stars and spins the planets lives within your heart, waiting to be recognized, waiting to be expressed, waiting to transform your life and the lives of all you meet. Jai Guru. Victory to the divine teacher within you. Victory to the love that you are. Victory to the light that shines through you always, even when you cannot see it yourself. Om. Peace, peace, peace. May all beings be free. May all beings be happy. May all beings remember their divine nature. And so at Island, amen. Every single day, God is trying to get your attention. He's sending you messages through the people you meet, speaking to you through unexpected events, and reaching out with signs so obvious that later you'll wonder how you missed them. But you walk past these divine appointments like someone searching for their glasses while wearing them. Today, I'm going to open your eyes to see the God who's been trying to meet you all along. What I'm about to share will transform every ordinary moment into a sacred encounter, every chance meeting into divine guidance, and every day of your life into continuous communion with the presence you've been seeking. In the next 45 minutes, you're going to learn the sacred art of recognizing God's daily presence in your life. You'll discover why you've been missing these divine encounters, how to develop the spiritual sensitivity that perceives God's constant communication, and most importantly, the specific practices that will transform your ordinary days into continuous communion with the divine. You'll understand the difference between looking for God and seeing God, learn to recognize the subtle languages through which the divine speaks, and develop what I call spiritual radar that detects divine presence in every experience. This isn't about finding God someday in some special place. This is about recognizing the God who's been with you every step of your journey. By the end of this teaching, you'll never feel spiritually alone again. Every moment will become a potential meeting with the divine. Every day will be filled with sacred encounters, and your entire life will transform from spiritual searching into spiritual finding. I know how it feels to pray into what seems like empty space, to long for God's presence while feeling completely alone in your spiritual journey. I've counseled thousands of sincere souls who read scripture, attend services, and practice meditation, yet still feel like God is somewhere far away, perhaps listening but not actively involved in their daily lives. This sense of divine distance isn't because God is absent, it's because we've lost the ability to perceive divine presence in its most common forms. We expect God to appear in dramatic ways, with obvious signs and supernatural manifestations. But the divine is far more intimate than that, far more present than we imagine. The truth is, God doesn't want to be found only in peak spiritual moments. He wants to be your constant companion, your daily friend, your moment-to-moment guide. He's not waiting for you to become more spiritual before he'll reveal himself. He's revealing himself right now, in this very moment, in ways you've been trained not to recognize. What I'm about to share comes from decades of learning to see with spiritual eyes, of discovering divine presence in the most ordinary circumstances, of recognizing that every moment of life is actually a sacred encounter waiting to be recognized. Today, we'll explore 4 profound dimensions of recognizing God's daily presence. First, I'll reveal why you've been missing these divine encounters, the mental habits and cultural conditioning that create spiritual blindness even in sincere seekers. You'll understand why looking harder often makes seeing more difficult. Then, we'll discover the sacred languages through which God speaks to you every day, through synchronicities, through people, through your inner voice, through nature, and through circumstances. You'll learn to recognize divine communication in forms you never suspected. Next, I'll teach you the practices that develop spiritual sensitivity, the inner exercises that train your soul's eyes to see divine presence everywhere. This isn't about changing your outer life, but about transforming your inner perception. Finally, we'll explore what happens when you live in constant awareness of divine presence, how this recognition transforms not just your spiritual life, but every relationship, every challenge, every ordinary moment into sacred communion. But here's what might surprise you most. God isn't playing hard to get. He's not testing your worthiness or waiting for you to prove your devotion. He's actively, constantly, lovingly trying to connect with you. The only thing standing between you and continuous divine communion is learning to recognize what's already there. What we'll discover today will transform you from a spiritual seeker into a spiritual finder, from someone who hopes for God's presence into someone who recognizes God's presence, from feeling abandoned by the divine into knowing you're never alone. So prepare to see with new eyes, to hear with new ears, and to recognize the God who's been calling your name through every experience of your life. My dear friend, before we can open our eyes to see God's daily visits, we must first understand why we've been blind to them. The greatest tragedy in spiritual life isn't that God is absent, it's that God is present but we've trained ourselves not to see. The first reason you've been missing God's daily appointments is what I call spiritual expectation syndrome. You've been taught that God appears in dramatic, unmistakable ways: burning bushes, parting seas, angelic visitations, miraculous healings. So your consciousness is scanning for the extraordinary, while the divine is manifesting in the beautifully ordinary. God doesn't need drama to reach you. In fact, the most profound divine encounters often happen in the quietest moments. When you're expecting thunder, you miss the whisper. When you're looking for miracles, you overlook the constant miracle of your own breathing, your beating heart, the intricate dance of life happening in every cell of your body. I remember a student who came to me frustrated after years of prayer and meditation. "I've never experienced God," she complained. "I've never had a vision or heard a divine voice." When I asked her to describe her most peaceful moments, her eyes lit up as she spoke of walking in her garden at dawn, feeling held by an inexplicable sense of love and belonging. That, I told her gently, was God meeting you every morning. You were looking for a deity, but God was offering you divine love. You were expecting words, but God was speaking through the language of peace. The second barrier is what I call busy mind syndrome. Your thoughts are so constantly active, planning, worrying, analyzing, judging, that you can't perceive the subtle divine communications happening beneath the mental noise. It's like trying to hear a whisper in the middle of a loud party. God's voice is not louder than your thoughts. It's deeper than them. Divine guidance doesn't compete with mental chatter. It waits patiently beneath it. When Moses encountered God in the burning bush, he first had to turn aside from his normal activities and give his full attention to what seemed like an ordinary desert shrub. Most people never turn aside. They walk through their days with minds full of mental television, reruns of past conversations, previews of future worries, commentary on present circumstances. In this state, divine presence feels absent not because it isn't there, but because there's no space in consciousness to perceive it. The third barrier is cultural conditioning that separates spiritual from ordinary. You've been taught that God exists primarily in churches, temples, and designated holy places. So you look for divine presence only during formal prayer, meditation, or religious services. The rest of life feels spiritually empty by comparison. But this separation is entirely artificial. God didn't create sacred spaces and secular spaces. Human beings did. The divine presence that you sense in a beautiful cathedral is the same presence that flows through your kitchen while you prepare meals, through your car while you drive to work, through your office while you serve others. There is nowhere that God is not, no moment when divine presence is absent, no activity that cannot become sacred communion. The limitation isn't in God's availability, it's in your perception of where and how God can be found. I once knew a janitor who experienced more continuous divine communion than many monks. He had learned to see his cleaning work as service to God, to find divine presence in every room he entered, to commune with the sacred through the simple act of making spaces clean and beautiful for others. His ordinary work had become continuous worship because he recognized no separation between spiritual and secular life. The fourth barrier is what I call unworthiness programming. Deep down, many people believe they need to be more spiritual, more pure, more deserving before God will reveal himself to them. So they're constantly trying to improve themselves rather than recognizing divine presence right now, exactly as they are. This belief creates a spiritual catch-22. You can't see God because you feel unworthy, but you feel unworthy because you can't see God. The truth is, God's love and presence aren't conditional upon your spiritual achievement. Divine love is the foundation of your existence, not the reward for your good behavior. You don't need to become worthy of God's presence. You need to recognize that God's presence is what makes you worthy. You don't need to earn divine love. You need to accept the divine love that's already surrounding you, supporting you, breathing you, keeping your heart beating, sustaining your life moment by moment. The fifth barrier is someday syndrome, the belief that divine communion is something that happens to advanced souls after years of spiritual practice. So you're waiting for someday when you'll be ready, someday when you'll have time, someday when you'll be more developed spiritually. But God isn't waiting for someday. God is available right now, in this very moment, exactly as you are, wherever you are. Divine presence doesn't require years of preparation. It requires a moment of recognition. You don't need to become someone else to meet God. You need to recognize that God is already meeting you. The ancient scriptures say that God is closer to you than your own breath. This isn't poetic metaphor, it's literal truth. The consciousness that knows you're reading these words, the awareness that experiences your thoughts and feelings, the aliveness that animates your body, this isn't separate from divine presence. This is divine presence, appearing as your very existence. The final barrier is perfectionism, the belief that divine encounters should be consistently clear, obviously spiritual, and emotionally uplifting. When you don't feel peaceful during prayer, when meditation feels difficult, when you experience challenges after asking for divine guidance, you think God isn't responding. But divine communication includes everything: the difficult conversations that teach you patience, the obstacles that develop your strength, the confusion that pushes you to seek deeper wisdom. God doesn't speak only through pleasant experiences. Sometimes the most important divine messages come through challenges that redirect your path, relationships that mirror your growth edges, or circumstances that reveal hidden aspects of yourself. Understanding these barriers is the first step toward removing them. Once you see how your expectations, mental habits, and beliefs have been creating spiritual blindness, you can begin to soften these obstacles and develop the clear spiritual vision that recognizes God's presence everywhere. The beautiful truth is that God has been patiently, lovingly, constantly trying to reach you through all of these barriers. Every moment you thought you were spiritually alone, divine presence was there, waiting to be recognized. Every prayer you thought went unanswered was actually answered in ways your barriers prevented you from seeing. Now that we understand what's been blocking your spiritual vision, let me reveal the sacred languages God uses to communicate with you every single day. These divine dialects are so common, so woven into the fabric of ordinary experience, that most people hear them as background noise rather than recognizing them as direct communication from the divine. The first language God uses is the language of synchronicity. What most people dismiss as coincidences are actually divine orchestrations designed to guide, teach, and bless you. When you think of an old friend and they call within hours, when you need specific information and overhear a stranger discussing exactly that topic, when you're facing a decision and see repeated signs pointing in one direction, these aren't accidents. I remember struggling with a major life decision about whether to accept a teaching position that would require moving to a different country. For weeks, I meditated and prayed, but felt confused about the right choice. Then, in the span of 3 days, I encountered 7 different people who spontaneously shared stories about how moving to new places had been the best decisions of their lives. Each story addressed a specific concern I had about the move. The final sign came when I opened a book at random, and my eyes fell on a passage that began, "When divine will calls you to new shores, trust the wind that fills your sails." I could no longer dismiss these coincidences as random. God had been patiently answering my question through orchestrated encounters until I finally recognized the divine guidance. The key to reading synchronicity is paying attention to patterns and repetitions. When the same theme, word, number, or symbol keeps appearing in your life, especially when you're facing important decisions or spiritual questions, God is speaking through this divine coordination. The universe is too orderly, too intelligent for meaningful coincidences to be truly coincidental. The second sacred language is the language of people. God doesn't only speak through angels or prophets. He speaks through every person who crosses your path, including the difficult ones. Sometimes the most important divine messages come through individuals who trigger you, challenge you, or force you to grow in ways you've been avoiding. Every person you encounter is carrying a message for you. The cashier who serves you with unusual kindness when you're having a difficult day, the child whose innocent question makes you see a situation with new eyes. The colleague whose criticism, though painful, points to an area where you need to grow. Even the stranger who cuts you off in traffic might be giving you an opportunity to practice patience or forgiveness. I learned this lesson deeply when I was going through a period of feeling spiritually stagnant. I kept praying for divine guidance about how to deepen my practice, but felt like my prayers were going nowhere. Then I began noticing that several people, in different contexts, mentioned the importance of service to others. My gardener spoke about finding God while caring for plants. A store clerk mentioned feeling most spiritual when helping customers. A child I met talked about how happy she felt when sharing her toys. Finally, I realized God was answering my prayers through these messengers. The divine guidance I was seeking was being delivered through ordinary people who were unconsciously carrying messages about the importance of selfless service. Once I began focusing more on serving others rather than on my own spiritual development, my spiritual life transformed dramatically. The third language is the language of nature. God speaks constantly through the natural world, through weather patterns, animal behavior, plant growth, seasonal changes, and natural phenomena. Indigenous cultures have always understood this, but modern people often miss nature's communications because we've become disconnected from the rhythms and messages of the natural world. Birds can carry divine messages, their sudden appearances, their behavior, their songs. Plants speak through their growth patterns, their health, their seasonal changes. Weather reflects divine communications through its timing, its intensity, its effects on your life. Even your pets can be divine messengers, drawing your attention to things you need to notice or bringing comfort when you need it most. I once spent months praying about whether to write a particular book that felt important but also intimidating. Every time I sat down to begin, I felt blocked and uncertain. One morning while walking in meditation, I asked for a clear sign about whether to proceed with the project. Within minutes, I encountered a tree that had been struck by lightning but was putting out new green growth from its damaged trunk. The message was unmistakable. Sometimes we must write and create from our wounded places, and our most important contributions can come from our experiences of being broken and healing. That very day, I began the book that became one of my most helpful works. Nature had provided the divine guidance I needed in a form that spoke directly to my soul. The fourth language is your inner voice, what some call intuition, instinct, or gut feelings. This is perhaps the most direct form of divine communication, but also the most commonly ignored because it doesn't speak in words or logical arguments. It speaks in knowings, feelings, sudden insights, and inner promptings that often contradict rational analysis. Divine guidance through your inner voice usually comes as a quiet sense of rightness or wrongness about decisions, relationships, or directions in life. It's the sudden inspiration that gives you the solution to a problem you've been struggling with. It's the uncomfortable feeling that warns you away from situations that look good on the surface but aren't right for you. It's the inexplicable attraction to opportunities that don't make logical sense but prove to be perfect. The challenge with inner guidance is distinguishing between divine communication and wishful thinking, fear, or ego desires. True divine guidance has certain characteristics. It comes with a sense of peace even when the guidance is challenging. It aligns with your highest values and spiritual growth. It benefits not just you but others as well, and it persists gently over time rather than demanding immediate action. The fifth language God uses is the language of circumstances, the events, challenges, opportunities, and changes that shape your life experience. What appears to be random circumstances are often divine orchestrations designed to teach you specific lessons, develop particular qualities, or guide you toward your highest path. When doors close unexpectedly, God might be redirecting your energy toward better opportunities. When you face repeated challenges in the same area of life, divine wisdom might be highlighting something you need to learn or heal. When resources suddenly become available or obstacles mysteriously disappear, God might be confirming you're moving in the right direction. The key to reading circumstances as divine communication is looking for the deeper patterns and lessons rather than just reacting to surface events. Ask yourself, what is this situation trying to teach me? How might this challenge be preparing me for something greater? What qualities is this experience helping me develop? Learning to read these sacred languages requires practice and patience. Start by paying attention to one language at a time. Notice synchronicities for a week. Observe the messages people bring into your life. Listen more carefully to your inner guidance. Look for divine communication in the natural world around you. The more you practice recognizing these languages, the more fluent you become in divine communication. What once seemed like random events begin to reveal themselves as orchestrated guidance. What appeared to be ordinary interactions show themselves to be sacred encounters. What looked like coincidences transform into conversations with God. Now that you understand how God speaks to you daily, let me teach you the practices that will develop your spiritual radar, your ability to detect divine presence in any moment, anywhere, regardless of circumstances. These aren't complex techniques that require years to master. They're simple shifts in attention that immediately begin opening your awareness to the sacred dimension of ordinary experience. The first practice is what I call sacred pausing. Throughout your day, deliberately pause what you're doing and ask yourself, where is God in this moment? This isn't a theological question requiring analysis. It's an invitation to shift from doing mode into being mode, from thinking about life to experiencing the divine presence that underlies all life. You can practice sacred pausing anywhere, while washing dishes, walking to your car, standing in line at the store, sitting at your desk. The location doesn't matter. What matters is the quality of attention you bring to the present moment. In each pause, breathe deeply and allow your awareness to expand beyond your immediate concerns to include the miracle of existence itself. When you pause while washing dishes, you might suddenly notice the miracle of warm water, the service you're providing to your family, the meditation-like quality of the repetitive motion. When you pause while walking, you might become aware of your body's amazing ability to move, the ground supporting each step, the air nourishing your lungs with each breath. These pauses don't need to be long. Even 10 seconds of sacred attention can shift your entire experience from ordinary to holy. The practice is training your consciousness to recognize that no moment is merely mundane, no activity is purely secular, no experience lacks divine dimension. The second practice is gratitude scanning, deliberately looking for things to appreciate in your immediate experience. This isn't about forcing positive thoughts or denying difficulties. It's about training your attention to notice the constant stream of gifts flowing through your life that usually go unrecognized. Right now, as you're receiving these words, you could appreciate your ability to understand language, the technology that makes this communication possible, the warm temperature of your body, the chair or surface supporting you, the air providing oxygen to your brain. These recognitions immediately connect you with divine presence because gratitude opens your heart to receive the love that's constantly surrounding you. Practice gratitude scanning during routine activities. While preparing food, appreciate the abundance available to you, the farmers who grew your vegetables, the intricate processes that transform seeds into nourishment. While driving, appreciate your car's reliable functioning, the roads that connect communities, the traffic laws that create order, the other drivers sharing the journey with you. Gratitude scanning transforms ordinary moments into recognition of divine generosity. When you train your attention to notice what's working, what's available, what's beautiful in each moment, you develop what I call abundance vision, the ability to see the constant flow of divine gifts that are always present but often overlooked. The third practice is divine dialogue, carrying on an ongoing conversation with God throughout your day. This isn't formal prayer with specific words or postures. It's treating God as an intimate friend who's always present and interested in sharing every aspect of your experience. You might silently share your concerns while stuck in traffic. God, I'm feeling stressed about being late. Help me find peace in this moment and trust that everything will work out perfectly. You might express gratitude while enjoying a beautiful sunset. Thank you for painting the sky with such incredible colors. Your artistry amazes me. You might ask for guidance when facing decisions. Divine wisdom, please show me the loving choice in this situation. You might offer your activities as service. Let this work I'm doing be an expression of love and service to others. This ongoing dialogue creates a sense of divine companionship that transforms solitude into communion. You're never truly alone when you're maintaining conscious connection with divine presence. Every activity becomes shared with God when you include divine awareness in your attention. The fourth practice is blessing meditation, silently blessing everyone and everything you encounter throughout your day. This practice immediately opens your heart and connects you with the divine love that flows through all beings and situations. When you see other people, silently bless them. May you be happy, may you be peaceful, may you know how loved you are. When you encounter animals, bless them. Thank you for sharing this planet with us. May you be safe and cared for. When you see plants or natural settings, bless them. Thank you for providing beauty and oxygen. May you thrive and flourish. You can even bless challenging situations. May this difficulty serve everyone's highest good. May all involved find wisdom and healing through this experience. Blessing meditation transforms you from a passive observer of life into an active channel for divine love and goodwill. This practice also changes your relationship with difficult people and situations. Instead of reacting with judgment or resistance, you respond with blessing. Instead of feeling separate from others' experiences, you recognize your spiritual connection to all life. Instead of being drained by challenging encounters, you become energized by sharing divine love. The fifth practice is wonder cultivation, deliberately maintaining the fresh eyes and open heart of a child who sees magic in ordinary things. Most adults have lost their natural sense of wonder through habituation and assumption. Wonder cultivation means consciously recovering the awe that recognizes every ordinary experience as extraordinary. Look at your hand as if you're seeing it for the first time. The intricate lines, the precise coordination, the sensitivity of touch, the amazing dexterity that allows you to create, to comfort, to communicate. Listen to rain as if you've never heard it before. The unique sound of each drop, the rhythm that varies with intensity, the way it nourishes all life. Watch people as if you're visiting from another planet. Their incredible diversity, their complex emotions, their amazing abilities to communicate, create, and love. Observe your own thoughts as if you're witnessing a miracle. The mysterious process by which consciousness knows itself, creates ideas, makes connections, experiences awareness. Wonder cultivation returns you to the natural state of spiritual amazement that recognizes every moment of existence as incomprehensibly miraculous. When you see with wondering eyes, you can't help but recognize divine presence because only infinite intelligence could create and sustain the magnificent complexity of ordinary experience. The sixth practice is presence anchoring, using routine activities as reminders to return your attention to the present moment where divine presence is always available. Choose 3 or 4 activities you do every day, perhaps drinking water, washing your hands, opening doors, or answering your phone, and use these as cues to come back to spiritual awareness. Every time you perform your chosen anchor activity, take a conscious breath and remember, God is here with me now. Let the physical action become a spiritual practice that connects you with divine presence. Over time, these routine activities become automatic reminders to shift from unconscious habit into conscious communion. This practice is especially powerful because it uses your existing daily rhythms to create spiritual rhythm. Instead of trying to add new spiritual practices to an already busy schedule, you're transforming activities you're already doing into opportunities for divine connection. As you develop these practices, you'll notice that recognizing God's presence becomes easier and more natural. What required deliberate effort begins to happen spontaneously. Moments of divine awareness become more frequent and last longer. Your overall sense of spiritual connection deepens and becomes more consistent. Remember, these practices aren't spiritual achievements to accomplish. They're invitations to remember what's already true. God's presence isn't something you create through practice. It's something you recognize through paying attention. These exercises simply train your spiritual vision to see what was always there. When you live in continuous recognition of divine presence, everything changes, not just your inner experience, but your entire relationship with life itself. What most people consider ordinary existence reveals itself as constant sacred communion. What appears to be a world of separate objects and random events shows itself to be one unified field of divine consciousness, expressing in infinite forms. The first transformation is that loneliness becomes impossible. Even when you're physically alone, you're aware of the divine presence that's closer than your own heartbeat. Even in crowds of strangers, you recognize the same divine consciousness looking out through every pair of eyes. You're never truly isolated because you're always connected to the divine source from which all life emerges. I remember the profound shift that happened when this awareness became stable in my consciousness. I was walking alone on a mountain trail, feeling the kind of existential loneliness that sometimes overwhelmed me in quiet moments. Suddenly, I became aware that the consciousness observing my loneliness, the awareness experiencing the mountain beauty, the aliveness breathing through my body, this wasn't my consciousness separate from everything else. This was divine consciousness itself, appearing as my individual experience, while simultaneously appearing as the mountains, the trees, the sky, the very awareness reading these words right now. In that moment, loneliness became impossible, because I recognized I was never separate from the divine whole that appears as everything I experience. This wasn't a temporary mystical state. It became a permanent recognition that transforms daily life into constant communion. The second transformation is that ordinary activities become forms of worship. When you recognize divine presence in every moment, washing dishes becomes a meditation on purity and service. Preparing food becomes an offering of nourishment to the divine presence appearing as your family. Working becomes a way of expressing divine love through whatever skills you've been given. This doesn't mean you have to think constantly about God while performing daily tasks. It means recognizing that the consciousness performing these tasks, the love-motivating service to others, the intelligence solving problems, all of this is divine consciousness in action. You don't need to add spirituality to ordinary activities, because ordinary activities are already expressions of divine creativity. The third transformation is how you respond to challenges and difficulties. When you're aware of divine presence, problems become opportunities for deeper trust and surrender. Instead of feeling victimized by circumstances, you recognize that everything, including difficulties, is part of the divine orchestration that's always working for your highest good and spiritual growth. This doesn't mean you become passive or stop working to improve challenging situations. It means you respond to difficulties from a foundation of trust rather than fear, from connection rather than separation, from wisdom rather than reaction. You can address problems while maintaining peace, because you know that divine intelligence is working through every situation, even the ones you don't understand. When health challenges arise, you work toward healing while recognizing the opportunity for deeper compassion and surrender. When relationship conflicts occur, you communicate honestly while seeing the spiritual growth these difficulties are catalyzing. When financial pressures mount, you take practical action while trusting the divine provision that's always available in forms you might not expect. The fourth transformation is in your relationships with other people. When you recognize divine presence in yourself, you can't help but recognize it in others as well, even in people whose personalities or behaviors you find difficult. This recognition doesn't make you naive about human limitations or harmful behaviors, but it allows you to respond to the divine essence in others while addressing personality-level issues with wisdom and appropriate boundaries. You begin to see every person as a divine being, playing a role in the cosmic drama, including the challenging roles that help you develop patience, compassion, forgiveness, and unconditional love. The colleague who criticizes you is offering opportunities to develop inner confidence. The family member who pushes your buttons is helping you discover where you still need healing. The stranger who treats you kindly is reminding you of the divine love that flows through human hearts. This recognition transforms how you communicate. Instead of trying to change others or defend yourself, you speak from the divine presence in yourself to the divine presence in them. Instead of reacting to personality conflicts, you respond from the deeper spiritual connection that exists beneath surface differences. The fifth transformation is that decision-making becomes effortless. When you're aware of divine presence and trust divine guidance, decisions arise from inner wisdom rather than mental struggle. You don't need to analyze every option exhaustively because you can feel which choices align with divine flow and which ones create resistance. This doesn't mean you stop thinking or gathering information. It means you use mental analysis as one tool, while also trusting the deeper intelligence that knows what serves everyone's highest good. You make decisions from a place of inner peace rather than anxiety, from trust rather than fear, from connection to divine wisdom rather than reliance solely on personal understanding. The sixth transformation is that your presence becomes healing to others. When you live in consistent awareness of divine love, you naturally radiate that love to everyone around you. People feel peaceful in your presence without knowing why. Animals are attracted to you. Children sense your authentic kindness. Even plants seem to thrive around you. This isn't because you become special or superior. It's because you become transparent to the divine love that wants to flow through every human being. When the barriers of ego, fear, and separation dissolve in divine recognition, you become a clear window through which others can glimpse their own divine nature. You don't need to preach or teach. Your peaceful presence teaches. You don't need to heal others. Divine love heals through your open heart. You don't need to fix people's problems. Your recognition of their divine essence helps them remember their own wholeness. The seventh transformation is that gratitude becomes as natural as breathing. When you see divine generosity flowing through every experience, appreciation arises spontaneously. You don't have to practice gratitude as a discipline because you can't help but feel grateful for the constant stream of divine gifts you're recognizing. This natural gratitude creates an upward spiral in your life experience. Gratitude opens your heart to receive more blessings. Receiving more blessings generates more gratitude. This expanding cycle of appreciation and abundance becomes self-sustaining, creating what the mystics call the flow of grace, a life experience of increasing blessing, joy, and divine connection. The final transformation is that death loses its terror. When you recognize that your essential nature is divine consciousness itself, the same consciousness that appears as all life, you know that what you truly are cannot die. Physical death becomes simply a transformation, like taking off old clothes to put on new ones, rather than the end of existence. This recognition doesn't make you careless about physical life, but it does free you from the anxiety that comes from believing your identity is limited to your temporary physical form. You can engage fully with life while holding it lightly, love deeply while maintaining detachment, serve wholeheartedly while surrendering outcomes to divine wisdom. Living in continuous divine recognition is not a distant spiritual goal. It's a present possibility available in this very moment. Every time you pause to recognize God's presence, every time you see with grateful eyes, every time you respond from love rather than fear, you're living in divine communion. These moments of recognition gradually become your normal state of consciousness, transforming your entire life experience from seeking God to living with God. My beloved friend, what we've discovered today transforms your entire understanding of where and how to find God. You now know that divine presence isn't limited to special spiritual moments. It's woven into every experience, every encounter, every breath you take. The God you've been seeking in distant heavens has been your intimate companion all along. You've learned why you've been missing these daily divine appointments, discovered the sacred languages through which God speaks constantly, and received the practices that will sensitize your awareness to recognize divine presence anywhere, anytime. Remember, this isn't about becoming more spiritual to attract God's attention. This is about recognizing the God who's already here, who's been trying to catch your attention through every beautiful sunset, every helpful stranger, every moment of unexpected peace that touches your heart. The barriers that have been preventing you from seeing God's daily presence, your spiritual expectations, busy mind, cultural conditioning, feelings of unworthiness, perfectionism, these are not permanent obstacles. They're simply habits of attention that can be changed through practice and patience. The sacred languages through which God speaks, synchronicity, people, nature, inner guidance, circumstances, these communications are happening constantly. As you begin paying attention to these divine dialects, you'll be amazed at how much God has been saying to you that you simply didn't recognize as divine communication. The practices that develop spiritual radar, sacred pausing, gratitude scanning, divine dialogue, blessing meditation, wonder cultivation, and presence anchoring, these aren't additional burdens to add to your busy life. They're invitations to transform activities you're already doing into opportunities for sacred communion. And the transformation that happens when you live in continuous divine recognition, the end of loneliness, the sanctification of ordinary activities, peaceful response to challenges, loving relationships, effortless decision-making, healing presence, natural gratitude, and fearless living, this isn't reserved for advanced mystics or future lifetimes. This is your natural state when the barriers to divine recognition dissolve. So carry this truth with you. You are never alone, never unguided, never beyond the reach of divine love. God is not a distant deity waiting to be found someday in some special place. He is your constant companion, your intimate friend, your ever-present guide who speaks to you through the language of life itself. Every person you meet carries a message for you. Every experience offers divine teaching. Every challenge brings hidden blessing. Every moment is a sacred encounter waiting to be recognized. When you see with spiritual eyes, you discover that your entire life has been one continuous conversation with God. Now, once you begin recognizing God's daily presence, a beautiful question emerges. If God is constantly communicating with you, how do you respond? How do you turn this recognition into a living dialogue? How do you move from simply seeing God's presence to actively participating in divine communion? In my next teaching, I'm going to reveal the ancient art of divine dialogue, how to respond to God's daily communications, how to ask questions and receive clear guidance, and most importantly, how to live in such intimate communion with the divine that every decision, every action, every thought becomes part of your ongoing conversation with God. This isn't just about recognizing divine presence. This is about developing the kind of intimate relationship with God that the great saints and mystics have always enjoyed. You'll learn the practices that transform one-way recognition into two-way communication, that turns spiritual awareness into spiritual intimacy. Because God isn't just trying to get your attention. He's longing for your response, your participation, your friendship. He wants to be not just present in your life, but active in your daily decisions, dreams, and deepest longings. So click on that video now, because the God you're learning to see is waiting to have the most intimate, transformative conversation of your life. I'll be there to guide you into the sacred dialogue that will change everything. Until we meet again in the presence that is always present, may you recognize the God who recognizes you in every moment.